You ever walk into a place knowing the deck is stacked, every eye on you, but nobody dares to say what they're really thinking? That was the vibe when I first set foot in courtroom 4B that morning, and believe me, it was thick enough to choke on. You could feel it in the way the walls seemed to close in just a little, in the way people avoided your eyes, in the way the judge looked over her glasses like you were the problem just for showing up. You know what I mean? It's the kind of place where silence isn't peaceful, it's just full of fear and memories of how these stories always end. That day, at the defense table, sat Darnell Brooks. 25, black, borrowed suit pinching his shoulders, sitting so straight it looked like his spine might crack. He wasn't just waiting for a verdict, was waiting for something to come out of the dark and finish what the world already started. You could see it in his eyes. They scanned the room, not looking for hope, just looking for the next hit, the next insult, the next thing meant to break him. And the charge, well, the charge was assaulting a cop. Unprovoked, the police said. Vicious, the prosecutor added. But you saw that video, you know it was nothing but a shaky clip off a bystander's Fanino sound. No beginning, no context, just Darnell pushing a cop. It looked bad, sure, but there was more there. Only nobody cared to see it. District attorney called Darnell an agitator, even brought up a sealed juvenile record like that should matter. Said this was a pattern. Never mind that the missing witness, the woman who was hit, never even got to testify. She vanished. Like that. At the bench was Judge Helen Whitaker. 25 years running that courtroom like she was queen. Never smiled. Didn't need to. Power, real power, doesn't need a grin or a shout. Her robe was always perfect. Her words even sharper. You got the feeling she'd already made up her mind before the doors opened. On her right, the prosecutor, young and smug, certain of the win. On her left, me. Or, well, Jerome Carter kind of lawyer who doesn't just defend. The kind who's here to settle a score that's not on paper. Let me back up a 6. This was never just about Darnell. It was about exposing what's rotten, the stuff that hides behind titles and traditions. The stuff that had been eating at me for years. So there I was, standing up slow, looking straight at Judge Whitaker. She glared at me like I was an inconvenience, but what she didn't realize, I wasn't alone in that fight, not by a long shot. And before this was over, she and this whole courthouse would know it. The tension was a living thing in that room, pulsing under the skin of every person there. I leaned on the defense table, knuckles turning pale. The big screen behind me held a frozen frame of that video Darnell, mid-push, officer's badge glinting. But I knew, and deep down so did she, that what mattered wasn't what was in the frame, but what was cut out. I spoke clear even. Your Honor, the defense contends this video was edited. The key segment showing Mr. Brooks stepping in between that officer and an unarmed woman has been removed. Whitaker didn't so much as blink. Prosecutor stood up, oozing confidence, insisting the video was full. Full, according to you, counselor. But the original was longer. 10 seconds longer. And that 10 seconds changes everything. Still no movement from the judge. So I said, allow us to call the woman who recorded the whole thing here. She's willing, and her phone's got the file. The prosecutor cut in, objected, said she hadn't been disclosed. Whitaker backed him up. Objection sustained. Witness excluded. There was the wall, high as ever. Felt that old familiar heat in my chest. Not anger, something deeper, sharper, like grief that can't be let out. I tried again. Your Honor, the court's got a responsibility to consider all relevant testimony, especially when it comes to the truth. But she cut back. I see. The court has a responsibility to maintain order, not chase every emotional thread. She said emotional like it was an insult, like truth was just noise. That's how it goes, you know? In places like that, dignity is a distraction, and truth's only useful if it fits their schedule. I sat back, looked at Darnell. He was stone still. But I leaned close, whispered, they don't want the truth. They want quiet. But we didn't come here to be quiet. Whitaker's gavel tapped, a warning, but I kept my eyes on her. She had no idea the game was changing. See, outside those walls, somebody was listening. And I hadn't come alone. Most people thought Jerome Carter was just a defense attorney. They didn't know that, before any of this, I worked for the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General, no less. My job? Track down corruption in the system. Not for glory, just because someone had to do it. I read the ugly files, saw the patterns everyone else ignored, cases dismissed, appeals denied, evidence vanished. And one name kept showing up in the margins: Helen Whitaker. Her numbers were always clean too clean. Convictions stacked against black defendants. Appeals snuffed out before they got daylight. I put it together, brought it to my superiors. They told me to let it go, said it was too risky. Next thing I knew, my department was restructured. Budget cuts, you know how that goes. They thought I'd just walk away. But I stayed close. I kept watching, listening, waiting. Not long after, an FBI agent, tired, careful, looking for someone who wasn't afraid, reached out. We started trading notes, built a case in the shadows. Testimonies, transcripts, the stuff that never made the papers. And at the center, always, was Judge Whitaker. When Darnell's case landed in her courtroom, I knew this was the moment. The charge was weak, the evidence full of holes. But the pattern, man, it screamed. So while I played the part of lawyer in court, I was passing along everything, every bit of it, to the folks who could really make a difference. And on my desk, under my trial notes, sat a manila envelope marked for release when the time's right. Today, that time had come. The trial rolled on. The judge got sharper. The jury sat stiffer. The gallery held its breath. I waited, watched the rhythm of defeat in that room. Then I stood. Your Honor, the defense calls a new witness under Emergency Exception Code 413.7. It was a gamble, but it shook the room. Whitaker, chin high, said no. I turned to the gallery. Ramona Jennings stepped forward, a woman in her late 60s, blue cardigan, face lined by years. She'd been selling fruit on the corner where it happened. Sworn in, she sat down, met my eyes. I asked her straight, "Were you there?" She gave a chuckle. 17 years, rain or shine. Then she told the jury what she'd seen: a cop yelling at a young woman, hitting her not once but twice. Darnell? He stepped in front, took the hit for her. That's what I saw. I don't forget kindness, not at my age. The room, for the first time, leaned forward. The jury, scribbling, whispering, waking up. Judge Whitaker tensed, lips pressed so thin they vanished. But Ramona kept going. That boy didn't start trouble. He stood in front of it, and the truth finally found its voice. Now, the room's mood shifted. I clicked a remote, showed a still shot fruit stand in the background, Ramona's world. I asked the jury, what if I told you another camera, across the street at Baker's Electronics, caught everything? The store was in the background of the video. High-res, motion-activated, running for 8 years. So why wasn't that footage in evidence? Was it ever submitted, Your Honor? She stiffened. Not deemed relevant. Was that your decision? I asked. Objections to evidence are made on legal grounds. But she was defensive now. Did you review it? That angle's obstructed, she said. That's not what the footage shows, I replied. I let that silence speak. Sometimes silence is the loudest truth there is. Then from my briefcase, I drew the manila envelope, stamped and sealed, and laid it on the table. I'm not introducing new evidence, Your Honor. I'm revealing what federal investigators already logged. This is about more than Darnell Brooks. It's about every case where the truth was ignored. The jury shifted. Judge Whitaker's fingers whitened on her chair. I broke the seal, pulled out 3 documents. First, a wire transfer receipt from a private prison company to Helen Whitaker's account. The room froze. Second, a string of emails, district attorney's office instructing court clerks. Omit any body cam that contradicts the police. Third, a list 14 cases, all black defendants, all with withheld evidence and maximum sentences. The average prison term? 19 years. Then came the gavel, slammed hard. You're out of line, Mr. Carter. But I didn't back down. No, Your Honor. This isn't your courtroom. It's the people's. They deserve to know who's been judging them. She rose, trying to salvage control, voice trembling. You are undermining the dignity of this court. I stepped forward, calm. I'm restoring it. The jury was absolutely still, eyes wide, hands gripping armrests. And then, the sound of metallic click, the door opening. 2 federal agents walked in, all business, badges glinting. Judge Helen Whitaker, under federal directive, you are now under investigation. The words didn't hang, they hit like a hammer. Whitaker reached for her foam muscle memory, looking for help. No one answered. The bailiff didn't move. Her courthouse officers, her loyal troops, wouldn't even look her way. Silence was rebellion enough. The agents read the warrant. She backed up, tried to protest, but the cuffs went on cold, quiet, final. She flinched, only once, then let herself be led away, not meeting anyone's eyes. Her walkout was slow, heels echoing on marble, every step a reminder of power lost. No one stood. Not one. She passed the same corridor she'd once crossed without glancing at the shackled men inside. Now it was her turn. An officer by the door said quietly, "You once told me justice had to be harsh. Maybe today, I finally get it. Justice has to know when to bow its head." Whitaker said nothing. She couldn't. Inside the courtroom, no celebration. Just a breath, a single, full breath for the first time in 25 years. Jeremiah didn't smile, didn't gloat. This wasn't about victory. It was about balance. The judge who'd stolen futures was gone. One robe down, the system didn't change overnight, but it had cracked, and that's how the light gets in. The verdict? Not guilty. 3 syllables, thunder in a bottle. Darnell sat there, barely breathing. The cuffs came off. He looked at his hands, stunned. "I thought I was going to die in prison," he whispered. Nobody moved. Some wiped away tears. Some just sat there, knowing the world had tilted, even if just a little. Downstairs, Whitaker sat alone in his cell. Her only visitor was an old judge who used to admire her, now regretting it, admitting he'd helped keep the wrong side quiet for too long. She had nothing to say. There was nothing left to defend. Outside, the sky was honest gray. The crowd wasn't cheering, they were just watching, silent. Darnell walked out beside me, still learning what freedom felt like. A reporter asked if this was a victory. "No," I said. "It's a crack. Sometimes that's enough to let the light in." At the steps, an older woman handed me a folder, whispering, "My son. 2 years. Never got to tell his side." I took it, added it to the stack in my briefcase, names and stories waiting for their own day in court. And as I walked away, no applause, no music, just the quiet crunch of gravel. Some days the system breaks you, other days it blinks. Today it blinked. That's enough for now, because this fight never ends. But neither does the will to keep going. The courthouse behind us was heavy, no longer untouchable. Somewhere, a crack had opened wide enough for hope to slip through. So, what do you think, was justice served? Or is this just one battle in a war that never really ends? I want to know where you stand. Drop your thoughts below. Tell me, does real justice look like to you? And if this story hit you, share it. Someone you know still believes in justice, and maybe, just maybe, we can make these cracks wide enough for everyone to see the light.